Chapter 6 of Jin Ping Mei Part 1. Heju takes bribes to hide the truth. But he said that Simon King had gone. At dawn, Mrs. Wang used the money to buy a coffin, some incense, candles, paper money, etc. When she returned, she lit a portable lamp in front of Wu Daling. All the neighbors came to visit, and the woman hid her pink face and pretended to cry. The neighbors asked, "What kind of disease did the old man have so he died?" The woman replied, "I feel distress because of the harm. I don't want to get worse day by day and see if I can get better. Unfortunately, the drum died in the middle of the night last night. Okay, it's so painful." He choked up and pretended to cry again. The neighbors knew that this man died in an unknown way, so they couldn't just consult him. Everyone advised, "If you die, you must live in peace. Madam, save yourself troubles, the weather is getting hotter." The woman had to pretend to thank her, and everyone dispersed. Mrs. Wang brought the coffin and asked Heju to be the head of the group. "But I bought everything for burial, all the necessary items for my home. So I called to Zen monks to Baoan temple and worshipped and repented in the evening." Not long after, Hejukshan called several Huo families to tidy up. Let's say that when Heju arrived at Sapai, he walked slowly to the entrance of Zishi Street and met Simon King. He shouted, "Where are you going, Laoju?" Heju replied, "I only go to the front to bury the body of Wu Daling, who sells cooking cakes." Simon King said, "Stop for a moment and speak." Heju followed Simon King to a small hotel around the corner and sat down in the pavilion. Simon King said, "Laoju, please take a seat." Heju said, "What kind of person is this villain? He dares to sit in front of a high official." Simon King said, "Why is Laoju seeing you outside? Please sit down." The two gave way and sat down. Simon King asked the bartender, "Bring me a bottle of good wine." The bartender laid down the vegetables, fruits, and wine while he poured the wine. Heju was suspicious and thought, "Simon King has never had wine with me before, so there must be something fishy about today's glass of wine." The two of them had been drinking for a long time when Simon King took out a piece of snowflake silver from his sleeve, put it in front of him and said, "I don't think it's a minor thing. I'll give you another reward tomorrow." Heju crossed his hands and said, "How can a villain dare to be given a silver tael by a high official if he is incompetent at all? If a high official has an order, the low man will not dare to resign." Simon King said, "Lao Juxu wants to see you, please accept it." Heju Dao, the senior official, said it's okay. Simon King said, "Nothing else." His family had some hard-earned money for a while. It's just that now when burying Wu Da's body, everything is done except for a brocade quilt to cover it. Heju Dao, "What do I mean? These trivial matters are of no great importance. How dare you accept money from a high official?" Simon King said, "If you don't accept it, you are rejecting it." Heju was afraid that Simon King was someone who controlled the government, so he had to accept the money. After having a few more glasses of wine, Simon King called the bartender to come. "I have taken down the account. Come to my shop tomorrow to pay." The two of them went downstairs and walked out of the store. Before leaving, Simon King said, "Ulchu must keep his mind in mind and don't let it out. I will make up for it another day. Just pay and keep going." Heju took the money and thought to himself, "There is no need to mention the reason. It's just that I'm afraid War came home to talk about this money, so keeping it is a testimony." On the other hand, he thought, "I will need some money in these 2 days, and I will use it. I can just take care of it in the meantime." So we went all the way to the head of Woman Gate. I saw the Huo family waiting at the door. Wang Po was also very angry as she waited. As soon as Heju arrived, he asked the Huo family, "What disease did this Wu Da student die of?" The Huo family said, "The family said he died of illness out of grief." Heju entered the door, lifted the curtain and came in. Wang Po then said, "I've been waiting for a long time. Yin and Yang have been here for half a day. Why did Laoju come before us?" Heju said, "It's just some little things that got in the way, and I came a step late. I saw that the woman was wearing a plain dress and a white bun, and she was pretending to cry from inside." Heju said, "Madam, please stop worrying. Da Lang has passed away." The woman concealed her tears and said, "It's unspeakably painful. My husband was suffering from the disease and died in a few days. It's so painful to be a slave." Hee-ju looked at the mother-in-law's face up and down, and thought in his heart he thought to himself, "I have only ever heard people say Mrs. Wu, but I have never recognized him." It turns out that Wu Daling asked for this wife to be in the house. Simon King used the 10 taels of silver. As he walked towards the soul, he looked at Wu Dal's body. After reciting the Yin and Yang Sutra, he lifted up the Qian flag, pulled apart the white silk, and looked intently. He saw Wu Die's fingernails were blue, his lips were purple, his face was yellow, and his eyes were protruding. He knew that he was evil. The 2 Huo family members nearby said, "Why are your faces purple? And there are tooth marks on your lips, and there is bleeding in your mouth." Hee-ju said, "Don't talk nonsense. It has been very hot for the past 2 days. Why don't you move around?" The 8-legged gourd was used to carry the coffin, and it was put into the coffin and nailed twice with long-lasting nails. Wang Po persuaded Hee-ju with a small amount of money and sent the firemen to their homes. Then she asked, "When will we go out?" Wang Po said, "The eldest lady said that the funeral will take place in 3 days, and the funeral will be burned outside the city." Hee-ju also stood up. The woman served wine to entertain people that night, and the next day she invited from monks to chant sutras. At 5 o'clock in the morning on the 3rd day, all the fire families came to carry the coffin, and a few neighbors paid their respects to each other. The woman put on her filial piety and rode in a sedan chair, pretending to cry, supporting the family all the way. When he came to the cremation field outside the city, he was taught to hold fire and burn the coffin. After a while, they burned everything and scattered the bones in the pond. It turned out that Simon King was in charge of the restaurant and paid for the rectification. The woman returned home and placed a spiritual tablet upstairs with the words "The spirit of her late husband Wu Daling" written on it. A glass lamp is lit in front of the coffin, and some prayer flags, money, paper, gold and silver ingots, etc., are pasted inside. That day, he and Simon King were together and sent to Mrs. Wang's house. The 2 of them had fun upstairs, which was no better than in the tea room of Mrs. Wang's house, where they just stole chickens and dogs. Now that Wu Da is dead and there is no one at home, the 2 of them stay up all night. At first, Simon King was afraid that his neighbors would see through it, so he went to sit with Mrs. Wang for a while, but then he came in through the back door of the woman's house with his servant. From then on, he became deeply in love with his wife and often stayed away from home for 3 to 5 nights. He left the house in a state of disarray and made everyone unhappy. Exactly, the color is as bold as the sky and is not free, and the love is deep and thoughtful. Those who are greedy for pleasure have no regard for life or death, and those who dote on them will cultivate their bodies. Only because of kindness, I feel deep and depressed, but mostly because of love, I hate you. To resolve the grievances between Wu and you, there will be no rest until the end of time. Time flies, the sun and the moon fly by, and it will be more than 2 months since Simon King stabbed the woman. One day, the Dragon Boat Festival is approaching, but I see the green poplars are draped with green silk, and the pomegranates are dotted with rouge red. A slight breeze stirs the curtains, and a rustling coolness invades the fans. The Dragon Boat Festival is celebrated everywhere, and every family celebrates it together.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.